Fans of a Horus Heresy, heavy caliber supporting projectile weapons, and magnetizing things more than you thought was necessary, thank you very much for joining me for a build and chat video. And in today's video, I am going to be doing a bit of work on the parts in front of me and also talking about some ideas about how to magnetize these weapon sponsons, or the weapons for these weapon sponsons, like this. And here we have a Sponson mounted autocannon, and this is from one of these guys. This is a Legion Arquitor, and this particular example in front of us is armed with the Morbus Heavy Bombard. Now, this autocannon isn't from that kit, it's from a different one. And this is the first one I did, which was a spicular rocket set. And I've magnetized it, but I stuck the actual weapon together. I've got another two of these. I've got the Graviton Charge Cannon and the Morbus Heavy Bombard we just had a look at. And after seeing someone do this on Twitter, which is my good friend Magos Terror, I thought I might try to do the same thing. And the same thing being to magnetize the heavy bolter and the autocannon, so either weapon option can be mounted. And the reason for that is I'm not yet at the point where I'm convinced as to which of these weapons is best for the Morbus. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah, broadly speaking. So we've got a few parts here, so I'll be doing a bit of cleanup, and as we go I'll be chatting about a couple of topics as usual. So let's start as we normally do with some tools. First up, we have a set of side clippers. These are the ones I've had a while. The Mr. Tools type. I found these very useful, and these are great for clipping keys off resin components. We then have a sharp scalpel. We then have a needle file, a flat underside, curved upper side, and tapering to a point. So that's a broad plan. So a bit of a random video this, but as I'll talk about, it will become apparent why we're having a bit of a random video, aside from just a general have a look at me building something. So without further ado, where shall we start? Well, let's start with a bit of resin work. And here we have the two autocannon barrels, like this. And I'm going to take these off the key and clean them up. And within that, I'm going to do a little demonstration of removing the mold seams and the slight mold offsets on the recoil springs. And someone asked me if I could do a video of this, and I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was it Mousebait on Twitter? I can't remember. But so whoever asked me if I could do this, I hope you found it useful. So I'm just going to start by clipping the keys away. Right, so, well, I suppose first thing, I hope all you guys and girls, I hope you are well. And in particular, I'm saying that in the context of, obviously, the current pandemic situation with COVID-19 disease doing the rounds. So yes, I hope you're well. As you remember from a couple of videos I did, one video back was it? I think the last video I did, I think I had this a couple of weeks ago. It's pretty much gone now. It's still got the cough, which keeps coming and going quite strongly at times. So I'm hoping it's not going to bother me today. If I do cough at all, I'll try to edit it out, but you know, any apologies for any coughs that do get in. I've got those clipped off. Let's start by doing some knife work to clean off the remainder of the keys. Oh yeah, now just let me check where that fits. Ah, okay. Oops, right, so I made an oopsie there. I've cut this, yeah. I mean, that Forge World. Right, look at this. What if you ever get these, watch out for that bit, because that's actually part of the autocannon, and it's supposed to go into that locking mount there. Not easy to spot that. Doesn't matter, because when I stick these, as I did here, I pinned it. So yeah, not so bothered. But if you're not pinning, it's important not to cut those off. Good start, Leaky. Right. So let's get rid of these keys, or the remains of them. And I'm going to do that with the scalpel, which is kind of, this blade is kind of at the starting to go a little bit blunt for this sort of work stage, but it's still sharp enough, and it's at that level of sharpness where I feel a lot more relaxed in using it, and I don't feel there's a particular high risk of cutting myself if I slip. So, you know, that's an advantage. Yes, so what a weird and wonderful world. So I found myself in a situation where I've been given a holiday from work. And the reason for that is I work for a business in the retail sector. And because of the UK government's containment procedures around the coronavirus outbreak, that business can't really trade much at the moment. So there's not so much to do. Now, it's a bit weird because I've got work I could be doing. But of course, you know, the business has got to consider the cost, and then, so anyway, I've got 3 weeks on the furlough scheme. I don't know if I'll have more time. Maybe I will. So given that, I thought, what a good opportunity to actually take a break from the normal and do some video content. So I thought this would be a nice little impromptu way to start with a bit of a build and chat video. What I'm doing is using the knife blade. I'm just cutting away the molding artifacts from the recoil springs. The trick, I mean, these aren't too bad. And the trick is just to carefully cut them down. I mean, these autocannons have got a very narrow tolerance for being well cast. Do you know what? Do you know what, crew? I forgot something. The final and most important tool, of course, is Dusty Brush. How did I forget Dusty Brush? Just goes to show how up in the air everything is for me at the moment. So, oh yeah, the reason I can't Dusty Brush is so I can give it a dust. Yeah, so I got some time to kill. And the weird thing is, and I don't know if anyone else is in the UK and is on the receiving end of the furlough scheme, but I was actually told in no uncertain terms that I was not to work. Now, I work on a computer and I work remotely, so I'm used to working, and I knew this was a possibility, and I had it in my mind that if it happened, I'll continue to do my job. Well, certainly for a period of time, because I have lots of stuff I could do. But now I was told in no uncertain terms not to work. And the reason for that is it is a condition of the government's scheme that you are not to work while furloughed, which is really weird. And I can't think of a time ever in my working life of over 20 years of when I was told not to work, and not to work for 3 weeks. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. But then again, we are in the middle of a pandemic, the likes of which we haven't seen for a century. Strange times indeed. So I've done a bit of knife work there. It's coming along. Maybe not finished, but I'm just going to work my way around for a first pass. So I've got the needle file. I'm now going to take down the mold seam stroke ridge on the autocannon barrel. So that's very peculiar, that is. Very, very peculiar. Yeah, so I've sorted out the things I need to sort out as a consequence of that. And I thought, well, let's get some quality leaky cheese in and actually have the time to make some videos. And some of the videos I wanted to make for a while. I don't know exactly what I'm going to make yet. Well, I do. I know what I want to do first. What I want to do first is I've got a series of videos to do on the various word bearers I've had painted on commission. So I want to do those. We'll be starting tomorrow with Erebus and Corferon, painted by Heretic Deb. I'll talk more about the painters when I do the reviews, and then we'll be moving on to the Galvorbach, painted by Bees. Awesome. And then we'll be doing Destroyer Marines, painted by Office Painter. Oh, and a bonus miniature, a Vigilator as well, also by Office. So I'll be doing videos on these separately. I think I'll be doing it by painter, because part of that is talking about their style and approach, as well as the actual models, which to me is as much as a part of the final thing. But yes, painted miniature reviews, and I hope you're going to like these. There's some absolutely wonderful looking models I've got to show you. Well, I think so anyway. So yes, we've got that to come. I will also now have time to properly write and do some retro hammer videos, which I've not touched in a good long while. I think the last one I did was the Armorcast Baneblade. I've got a gazillion retro hammer projects I can do. They take a bit of time because I like to do them justice, and I know all you guys and girls really appreciate the retro hammer insights. And the first one I've got to do is something in terms of the format. It's going to be quite different, not to the channel, but to retro hammer in terms of what I've done before. And I've got hold of an old model, and we're going to do something rather interesting with that model. So I need to write an introduction to that, but the actual episode, there isn't too much preparation work to do. It's like a film and shoot one. Whereas a lot of the retro hammer videos, there's a lot of model prep that goes, a fair amount of research, collecting materials and writing it as well. It certainly takes me a bit of time. I wouldn't say I'm naturally a writer, but when I put my mind to it and put enough effort and time in, I think I'm quite pleased with what I do. Right, how are we looking now? This is coming along. A little bit closer. If I get more time, depending how long this furlough lasts, and it could end for any time for me because I've actually applied to an internal transfer program, so I could actually, if an opportunity comes up, I could at any point go back to working full time. In which case, obviously, I'd have to sort of cease. I wouldn't have that time available to work on videos that I'm talking about now, but we'll see. So yeah, just to be aware that this at any time, my free bonus holiday, what you want to call it, could end. But let's assume it doesn't. I've got at least 3 weeks to work, create some videos. One of which I would like to look at is, and many of you have asked me for this, a review of Horus Heresy Book 8 Malevolence, which is well overdue. I've had the book for ages. It's just time again. Book reviews, big investment in time. I read them cover to cover. So when I talk to you about them, I'm giving you what I believe is an authoritative, or at least a view based on I've experienced a product fully, so I can comment on it. That will probably take, to read that will probably take 3-4 days. Might take less actually. I can't remember. It's been that long since I did the last book review. And the first set I did when I had a lot of time available, and I remember doing them in a run. At the end of, was it 2017 or 2016? Or was it early? It was basically in the run up to book 7, Inferno, being released. So that's another thing that's on the cards. I think to start with, those are some pretty decent, respectable, and achievable aims. So, commission paint reviews, retro hammer, those are first, and then moving on to a malevolence review. I do want to get to malevolence because certainly in the next 2 months, because Crusade is going to get released any moment now. Malevolence is going to be a bit of a weird one because, of course, it went out of print. They ran out of copies. I don't know why they ran out of copies. Did it sell exceptionally well? Maybe. Or did they just not order as many as usual? I don't know. I was just looking now. That's looking pretty good. There's still a bit of a artifact there, but it's nearly there. Try just clean these up a little bit more. You can be ever so careful when you're doing this because a slip and you just slice through one of these coils. And while it could be fixed, it'd be an absolute pain in the proverbial to do so. So yeah, that's my first thing. Yeah, strange thing on the job front. And like all furlough schemes, unfortunately, you get a reduced salary of 80% while you're on it, which is what's the phrase? Suboptimal. That's the one. And I hope any of you, I don't know if any of you have been affected by this, but I hope you haven't. And if you have, I hope things are okay for you financially, for you and your family. So yes. And of course, in the UK, there are schemes available. Well, there's certainly the mortgage holiday payment scheme available, which is a useful tool to help people financially in the current situation. So yeah, so I think that's the life Sitrep and channel outlook bit talked about. Okay then, what else would I like to talk to you about? Let me thinky-dinky. I can think of at least one thing to talk about, and one thing's not really enough, so I need a second. Well, the first thing is I'd like to talk to you about the recently previewed Horus Heresy character series miniature, which is Saul Tarvitz. I'll try that again. Which is Saul Tarvitz of the Emperor's Children, Legio 3. That was a welcome surprise. So I'm going to talk to you about that. I guess what we'll do is we'll talk about that and I'll see where my thoughts lead us. I'm sure something will pop in after that. So Saul Tarvitz, okay, right. I think it was I don't know where they do the previews, do they do it on Twitch? Basically, most of the Warhammer community team seem to be working from home now under the COVID restrictions in the UK. And I think they're doing this Twitch stream as a way of maintaining their community engagement part of their jobs. So that's cool. And I think this is the third preview they've done. Of course, Games Workshop's all closed up at the moment, or very limited operations. I imagine a lot of their staff are furloughed. Might be wrong there, but it kind of it wouldn't surprise me. Certainly their retail staff. I don't know about their, not sure about the head office staff. But yeah, there's a very limited amount of ordering. I mean, I don't think Games Workshop are resupplying their independent stockists. Their stores are closed. Correct me if I'm wrong on the independent stockists. Stores are closed. Online, all you can do is they are taking orders on the Lieutenant Emilius or miniature, is it? They're taking orders on that as a one-off, and then there's a new sister miniature and the Terminator Librarian as well, which are nice. I like the sister miniature. I'll get that one. I've got some sisters models I've bought, and I like the new sisters. Are really good, great range. But I'll get her to go with that. I think the Terminator Librarian seems like the guy from, I don't know where he's from. There's been a fair amount of, I've seen some slightly unkind commentary about some of these models, and I just don't get it. They're nice miniatures. Oh, I just had to edit out a rather savage cough there. Okay, I think this is pretty much there now. Let's just do a little test fit against the main barrel. Yeah, that'll go like that, so that's fine. Oops, it did, there you go. There we go, like that, lovely. Now, here's the thing, how to magnetize these. Let's take this and the heavy bolter off the keys, and then I'll talk a little bit about my magnetizing thoughts. So I've got the cutters here, and I'm going to snip this post. Yeah, I can snip this one as well. When I snip, I don't go too close. It's a bit like the same sort of principle with Gundam kits, not to cut right up to the edge. So it just leaves that bit there, which can then be cleaned down. Yeah, and it'll end up looking like that. And let's do the heavy bolt gun. Great kits, these ER cutters. Once I get these finished, I'm going to do a triple review. I'm going to do all three: the Spicular, Graviton, Charge Cannon, and Morbus Heavy Bombard. So I've got one of each. And I'm going to talk about the full gamut in one go for all three of the models. Rules, models, everything. Right, let's do a little bit of cleanup now before we move on to thinking about how it can go together ideas. These are nicely cast, these parts. I was quite pleased with these. No, sorry, that's a bit of an understatement. I was very pleased with the casting on these ones. A few bits of cleanup to do, but generally the cleanup is kind of like, it's like acceptable levels. Just cutting down the keys here. Right, let me get back to Saul Tarvitz. Now, Saul Tarvitz is really interesting to see a model for because, for those of you who don't know, Saul Tarvitz was a captain of the Emperor's Children. He was seen as being somewhat derisively looked down upon by the likes of Lord Commander Eidolon and Fulgrim as a line officer, inverted commas, as opposed to one of the rising stars of the Legion, such as, say, Julius Caesarion was. We all know what happened to him. But Saul Tarvitz famously, to a large degree, organised and led defensive actions against the traitors on Isfahan III. He was one of those who, well, very famously warned the loyalists, well, who, I don't know if you could even call them loyalists at this point. Well, they were loyalists, but who were on the surface. He flew down, warned them in a gunship, and led to large numbers of them surviving the virus bombardment and resulting planetary firestorm, courtesy of Mr. Lupercal himself. And as far as I can tell, canonically, he was killed in the late stages of the Isstvan 3 battle. There's a lot of fans who I think want him to be alive because he is a cool character. He wasn't like what's his name who survived? Loken. But as cool a character as he is, the fact that he did die in that battle is important because it represents sacrifice. So as much as I would like to see him survive, I think it's kind of important in the story that he doesn't, because otherwise it kind of undermines his decisions in the story. So Saul Tarvitz. Now, what's interesting, aside from all that cool story and backdrop and who he is as a character, is the fact that Forge World have chosen to return to an early character from the Heresy series, one of whom they described in the rules in Book 1, Betrayal, but not actually done anything with from a figure range point of view. And there are a lot of named characters in the Heresy rules that don't have models for. Now, you can look at this from a number of different perspectives. The converters out there, I think, don't mind this because they like making cool conversions of, say, the Mournival and Garrow. Garrow, yeah, because we only have a model of Garrow as a knight errant. Saul Tarvitz, for example. They like making their own and creating their own, but I think from a customer perspective, people they would like to see official models for a lot of these characters, and Saul Tarvitz is a big character. And if you can make a model of the Primarch Ferrus Manus, who lasts about a week into the Heresy before he has his special buzz cut from Fulgrim, you can make a model of Saul Tarvitz. So I think from a fan point of view, overall, there's a big appetite for these. And I remember being at one of the Heresy Weekend events many years ago, and I think it was Tony Cottrell was asking for a show of hands on which characters they should do, and lots of hands went up in the room. I can remember when he mentioned Shadrach and Meduson, every hand went up in the room pretty much. And it's surprising that they've not got to these yet, but I think now if I'm reading this Saul Tarvitz right, I'm wondering if they're going to go back to Book 1 and start working their way through these named but unmodelled characters, which would be rather neat, I think. Yeah, I think I'd like that. And it's a good way to keep the Heresy range, the Heresy alive and expanding the range. And heroes are a great way of bringing people in. Single miniatures, relatively inexpensive. A good way of, and people like hero models. This is going to need a little bit of filling at the back. As you can see, we've got a bit of moulding, a little bit of a divot there. I might fill that with some super glue, but yeah, it's all right. So, I think we've got rid of, maybe a little, I don't know, there's a little bit of something there. Yeah, so I wonder if we're going to do that. And there are a lot of characters that could be given that treatment. And by extension, there are a whole load of models that have never been released, despite being given rules. And some of them are quite unique. I think I did a video about 18 months ago or 2 years ago on that, and I think most of that to-do list is still to do. I might dig it out and put a link in the video description if you're interested. I mean, there's even things going all the way back to book 2 that haven't been released in terms of units. So, for example, the Myrmidon Destructors. We never got models for the photon thruster weapons they could have. What do they call it? Photon thruster cannon, was it? Ooh, gosh. I don't know what this bit is now. Looks like I'm making a right mess of that. Maybe if I can try file it down. Just get in there. Yeah, so there's one example of a model that's never been done. Ooh. Bit of a shame, that. So, let me, here we go. Right, another part not in shot. We've got a mounting bracket, so that is supposed to, the notch faces backwards, so it will go like that. We then have the targeting cogitator or targeting device. So, okay, right, first challenge here. It would appear that that doesn't quite fit. So let's try address that. So I've got a needle file now. I'm just going to try open up that hole a little amount at the top, so it'll accept this post. There we go. Now this is fiddly. This is as to how to deal with the magnetization bit. So that's got a notch in it. You can see there, and there's a corresponding notch in the weapon. And the reason that's there is it clicks in like that, and then as you articulate the heavy bolt gun, that moves with it. So as I'm reading it, if I'm going to have this interchangeable with the auto cannon, that is going to have to stay as is. Okay. We then also have these parts here. So let's take one of these off. These are basically the power cabling. We need one of these to think about the bottom end. I've got a better idea of how the bottom end is going to work, which I'll talk to you about in a moment once I've cleaned this up. So, in casting wise, we've got a bit of got the remainder of the gates to remove, which is common. So let's just do that. I wonder what you guys and girls think about the Saul Tarvitz miniature. I mean, not necessarily the miniature itself. I mean, looks-wise, I don't know. To me, it looks like what I'd expect an Emperor's Children officer to look like. It seems to have the right look to it. Someone commented that the pauldrons, someone whose opinion I think is fairly respectful, and I think they've got a good eye on the aesthetic of the heresy. They said the pauldrons are quite large, and I think there's some truth in that. They are quite chunky monkey. Artistically, I think it fits with some of the artistic renditions I've seen of Tarvitz. But they are quite, they are on the big side. So I guess a way around that is to replace them with straightforward Mark IV pads. And by doing that, you could kind of just tone the whole model down a little bit. And that might be to some people's liking as well. So it looks like it's got the standard sort of design for a Heresy character miniature in resin. So yeah, I think those pauldrons could be toned down if you think they're too big. But apart from that, the main thing about him, it's a head. The head, the body, the armor, it all looks very good. I mean, and of course, you know, there's all sorts of opportunities. Once they release this miniature, I mean, if you like the head but not the body, you could always buy it and put the head on a more regular Mark IV miniature. I bet that could lead to some really cool conversion Tarvitzes. It actually, one thing I just thought is the Tarvitz body. I think it could make quite a good base for a Lucius. What was it called? I think it was just called Lucius, wasn't it? Does he actually have a first name, or is he just known as Lucius, even in the Heresy area? Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. But yeah, I think he could make a good Lucius base. And for that matter, any Empress Children officer, be it a Centurion or a Praetor, I think there's great potential there. I bet it would be good for a Blood Angel conversion. I could see it being a basis of good Blood Angel. And possibly even Dark Angel as well. And I'm sure lots of people got a lot more ideas than I do about how this new body could be used. So that's another interesting prospect that comes out of this Saul Tarvitz model. It's more characters being done, and then the conversion opportunities that opens up for people who want to homebrew characters. I wonder if you'll get a helmet with not Lucius. I start calling him Lucius now, with Tarvitz, or if it'll just come with an unhelmeted head. A helmeted head would be really cool. That was one thing that I thought, it's a shame. I know why. It's because it was one of the early miniatures, the Fulgrim miniature. I like the Fulgrim miniature. It's really good. I just think it's a shame it doesn't have an alternative head. Like the Lionel Johnson miniature is going to come with a helmeted and unhelmeted head. And the reason I say that is because in the stories, Fulgrim is sometimes referred to as wearing his helmet. That said, I've seen some really good conversions. Really good Fulgrim conversions for his helm. Really, really cool. Okay, so we have the Sponson weapon assembly, and that goes in there like so. And this is a rather pleasing arrangement. I do rather like it, and that's what it looks like. Now, to have this as an interchangeable weapon with autocannon is tricky. This part is shared by both. However, this is unique to the heavy bolter because the autocannon has a separate power conduit. What I'm thinking I'm going to do is this. So first I need to take this out, and it was quite a snug fit. Right, there we go. I'm going to mount a magnet in here, cut this post down and put a magnet in here. I'm also, oh gosh, that's tight. I need to loosen that up. That needs to be looser if I'm going to have this as an interchangeable. It does need loosening up. Let's see, maybe it just needs a little bit taken off the side posts. I hope another thing this might give you a bit of a feel for is the kind of way that I model, and the sort of the kind of way I just gently push things. I test things, see how they fit, try them out, and then maybe just clean up a little bit as I go. There you go. That's nice. That feels a much. It's not loose. It's not over. It's not jammed in there. As how I model things and get good fits. Had some right wrestling with one of the Arcoutor kits. I mean, proper, like full physical strength being exerted on some of the parts when I was heat bending them into shape. That was a bit of a job. And I've done a lot of forge wall models now with a lot of heat bending, and even so they were, this one stood out to me. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a magnet in here, a magnet in there, and then cut this post off and a magnet in there, all with aligned polarities. So what will then happen, and then that'll be stuck to here, that'll be stuck to there, so I'll probably put a tiny little pin in there for strength, because it's going to be hanging. And the way it'll work is that'll slide in there. Because there's no pin, that'll just be able to slot into place there, and the magnets will keep it lined up. And then it'll be just like dropping this bit into the top, and this bit will just be a push fit. And then, yeah, there you go. Robert's your father's brother. I think that's my approach. And that is essentially, that's the idea that Magos Terror came up with in his Twitter post. So yeah, thank you for that, Magos. I do appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I'm going to use it. Obviously, these ones are built, everything's stuck, so I'm always going to have one set of Sponson weapons for the Arcoutor that have to be autocannons. I don't mind that because I think for the spicular variant, the autocannons suit it well. However, the Morbus and the Graviton Charge Cannon, I think the heavy bolters might be a useful option. I've got a lot to say on the rules for the Arcoutor tanks because they're really interesting vehicles. I love the vehicles, they're so cool. But rules-wise, they're a little bit confused for me at the moment. And I think they just need a little bit of adjusting to get the functionality right. But that's for the actual final review video. Right, let's do a little bit more cleanup now. So this is the first autocannon body. And I'll clean this up and then we can just rerun that little demo of fitting. So the first thing I noticed is we've got a little bit of gunk in here. There you go, taking that out now. Always important when you've got articulating parts to check apertures and joins to make sure they are clean. Right, so they've got a mold slip here. So let's start by taking that away. And I suppose having talked about recent previews and the upcoming Book 9 Crusade, I guess that does raise a question of when will Book 9 be released, because I suspect it's clearly going to be delayed. I don't know when they were planning on releasing it. Were they planning on releasing it at Warhammer Fest? Could be. That's not happening because, of course, Warhammer Fest had to be cancelled, as did Salute, sadly. It was a shame. One thing I will say here is I was not particularly impressed by the approach of the e-ticket seller who was running Salute. What are they called? C-tickets, that's right, yeah. I thought they were quite opaque in terms of how they dealt with the cancellation of Salute. And they instead of refunding everybody for the tickets purchased, they listed the event as being delayed a year, which is like, that's nonsense. It hasn't, Salute 2020 hasn't been delayed, it has been cancelled. And there's no guarantee that someone who was able to go this year is going to be able to free up the same time next year to go. The default position should have been refund. They made that quite opaque to deal with, and sadly I had to resort to a purchase dispute with my payment provider. In this instance it was PayPal, to recoup my funds for the ticket that I bought, which is a shame that. And I didn't think that C-Tickets handled that right. They should have offered refunds to everybody. I know, look, I know that the economic situation's tough, but at the same time, I think you've got to respect your customers. So yes, a little aside there, but yeah, not that I'm telling you what to do, but if you've encountered issues with obtaining Salute ticket refunds and you paid through PayPal, you have a route for recourse if you feel that you're not getting traction for a refund request. So I put a refund request in, they didn't acknowledge it. And I can't remember how long it's been back now, I didn't hear, but as a precaution I'd opened the payment dispute. Anyway, that found in my favour, so that's resolved. Yeah, something to think about though if you're in the same situation. Right, so this autocannon, again, it's nicely cast, got a little bit of offset around the whole piece. And I'm just working around with a knife and cutting everything so it's back in line with I think what it's supposed to be. Overall, this is really nicely cast. And I've got a little bit of this is a little bit untidy in here. What's happened is part of the silicon mold has broken here when this has been cast, and we've got some casting artifacts as a consequence. So I'm going to cut those away. And what basically happens there is part of the mold breaks, they use it again, and then they cast the broken part, or the broken relief of the mold onto the new part. And that's exactly what we've got here. And I've talked about that on many of the videos I've made about Forge World kits. I'm sure you can get it on anyone who casts in silicon, and I have seen it on other brands, but obviously most of my content is Forge World, so that tends to be what gets used as an example. So just cleaning up this ammo drum, this detail in the ammo drum, and that was where the casting gate attached. How are we doing on time? 52 minutes at the moment, so I guess once that's coming up to about the hour mark, which is probably what I'm aiming for today's video, around about an hour. It'll take me several hours to finish all these bits. I mean, it's a bit, you may not notice this, but I can't work as quickly as I would normally do when I'm filming. And that's just because of equipment and camera angles and the rest of it. So it wouldn't take me this long to do everything. Yeah, we're getting all sorts of little surprises out of Forge World, and I suppose one of the things, the reason why we're getting surprises is because they've kind of gone a bit turtle in terms of what they share with the community at events. And I don't know if that was Forge World's decision or if it was the Warhammer community or overall business decision. But yeah, so for example, I wonder if Games Workshop is ruining its decision not to run the Horus Heresy Weekender this year. Because of course that event would have gone ahead, and obviously they'll have made the sales and other, well, those weekends you should see the money that gets spent. Goodness me. Yeah, they take a lot of money at those events. All those sales they've lost this year, and they really are lost to a degree, certainly in terms of cash flow for Games Workshop because of the COVID situation. And Games Workshop are trying to generate some cash flow at the moment for their business. And they're running the voucher scheme whereby if you buy £50 worth of e-vouchers, and you can buy this for either the Games Workshop store or the Forge World store. So you don't just buy vouchers. They have to be either Forge World or Games Workshop. They're not interchangeable. So if you spend 50 quid on Games Workshop vouchers, you can't then spend those in Forge World. That's how I read it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is how it works. But if you do spend, I think this runs up until around the end of April, this offer currently. But if you spend that, they will give you £5 extra. So 10% extra. So buy £50 and get 55. That's how it works. So for me, Games Workshop main, that discount, not really. Not really worth it from a customer viewpoint because just about everything Games Workshop sell you can get from an independent cheaper. But if you can only buy from Games Workshop, or if you do so because you see that as being a way to support, that's how you want to support the business, then this online voucher offer perhaps has some merit. I guess we always have to be very careful and cautious around buying vouchers because if a business runs into financial difficulties, your vouchers can be worth exactly zero. Could that happen here? I don't think so. I think Games Workshop is quite well capitalised at the moment. I think they have quite a large cash reserve. And given they've shut up shop, they'll be invoking the government's furlough scheme. I don't think they're going to go under. I don't think there's any real risk of that at all. Certainly not in the foreseeable future of reopening after a lockdown. So yeah, I think those vouchers they're a safe buy. I'm thinking of getting some for Forge World, put it that way. Yeah, the Games Workshop ones to me not really worth it, but the Forge World ones are worth. I'm considering getting some, and that's because you very rarely get any discount on Forge World products. You can't buy them elsewhere. There's exactly one place that sells them. Occasionally, obviously, they do discounted bundles. They've done seasonal offers like the Dreadnought. Buy a Dreadnought, get one weapon free. And I think one time they did 10% off a full Warlord. Good offer, but you got to have cash for a full Warlord, haven't you? That's a bit of a corner case offer in terms of who can take advantage of it. But the Forge World one, yes, there is That's tempting. The reason they're doing it is they want to maintain some cash flow in the business, I think, which isn't entirely understandable given what's happened with COVID. This bit here got an absolute pain in the butt. Mold slippy thing. So I don't know if you can see it's here. I might actually leave that and use some super glue and accelerant to level that. Oh, by the way, you'll have to excuse my fingers. I don't know why they're looking a bit gnarly today. Well, I do. I don't know. I had all the skin come off here, or quite a lot of the skin, the upper layer. Looked like a bit of contact eczema. I was trying to figure out how I did it, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's contact eczema. I got my hands extremely cold a couple of weeks back. Sorry, a week ago. I got chilblain, or beginnings of, not proper chilblains, but the beginnings of chilblains there. So I don't know if that was part of it as well. But yeah, that's why I look a bit gnarly. I was doing quite a lot of accelerant work in the week before that. And obviously when I tend to spray, I tend to hold like that or like that. And I wonder if it had been getting accelerant repeatedly on that part of the skin and drying the skin out and causing it to flake off. I'm not sure. Anyway, a bit of a random aside, but yes. So there's a voucher scheme running as well. Something for us all to think about. And if you are financially in the position to do that, then yeah, in effect, what is in effect a kind of like a 10% offer, 10% off offer for Forge World. Not bad, not bad. There's something I'm tempted to get. There's a bit of a fun piece. I don't know if I will do. Right, how are we doing here? We're getting there. There's quite a lot of mold. There's a bit of a mold slip that's run across quite a lot of the details of this auto cannon here. I've just been whittling away, trying to sort it out. Nearly there. Yeah, I do wonder when Book 9 is going to be released now. I suppose, I mean, Warhammer Fest was for May, wasn't it? So I guess it's not inconceivable that if we're able to resume limited operations, that we could still see the book being released on time, or on schedule, let's say, for Warhammer Fest. Just obviously without the fest. A little bit of a funny surface effect there, so I'll just sand that away. Last couple of bits just to do. I enjoy doing my models so they're kind of all the mold lines are gone. I really dislike mold lines on my miniatures. I think for me, this is just me, there's nothing worse than a mold line for making a model look artificial, which is why I spend so much time taking them away. And it does pay off, as you're seeing the ones I've had painted, even though I don't really get around to painting my own stuff. I think you're going to like the word bearers. Some lovely models in there to share with you. Okay, so we're probably at about the hour point now, so I'm just going to finish up with test fitting the auto cannon. I say that to do a quick finish, but looking at this, there's quite a lot of cleanup to do on this part. See these mold slips here. I'm not going to do the cables, they take a long time to do. It'll take me probably 20 minutes just to do the cable to get rid of all those that blooming mold slip running across the cable ridging. Maybe it won't. What I'm doing here is I'm using the sharp edge of a needle file to basically score out the mold slip from the cable ridges. It takes a few goes, but you can see how that works. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but just a little demo of how to, the technique I use. You can see the considerable improvement we've already got after a few swishes. Swishes, is that a technical term? It is now. A few swishes of the file. One funny thing about the current, certainly here in the UK, the weather is absolutely lovely. So in the middle of this period of lockdown, absolutely amazing weather. How bizarre. Right, I'm going to leave it at that just so I can show you. So we take our mounting bracket, and I presume this is the same one, but it might not be. So with the same principle here, we've got the targeting array, which will drop in the top. It's not the same one, it must have been this one. Yeah, maybe it was. Okay, maybe it was that one. There you go. So that go in there. And then I'll do the same approach with the magnets on the lower section. That will go in there like that. That doesn't quite fit yet, so I'm not cleaned up. Definitely will be pinning this one because that's just otherwise going to be way too fragile. And I'll do the magnet range mince there. And then we'll have that. Oh gosh. And then the barrel will go on like so. That needs pinning. These auto cannons on the Arquitor, really good little muzzle brake drill out if you fancy doing it. You can see I've done this one. It's quite easy to do actually, one of the easier ones, but that was fun. Anyhow, I think we've gone on quite a long time now. I've waffled a lot, but I hope you've enjoyed this slightly random and, for me, this unusually unexpected video. So yeah, there you go. Doing a bit of resin prep work there, a few techniques for you to see in action, and then also talking about ideas for how to magnetize the side auto cannons on the Arquitor Bombard models. I hope you've found that interesting. As always, I would like to hear your thoughts and observations about what I've done today, and what I've talked about in the comment section. Please do share those as always. And again, I do hope you're well. You, your friends, and your families are all staying clear of the virus. So do all take care. But other than that, I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.